Daredevil Season 3, the final season of the show, released on Netflix back in October of 2018. It is up for debate whether or not the Marvel Netflix shows take place inside of the MCU. On the one hand, James Gunn has said every show before WandaVision is not in the MCU, and the Netflix shows have never crossed into the movies, and actors from the shows have appeared as different characters in the MCU, such as Mahershala Ali in the upcoming Blade reboot. But the shows were originally designed as MCU shows, and the movies have had a large effect on the shows, so it is very unclear whether or not they are set in the MCU. But regardless whether or not they are, Daredevil and the other characters in the Marvel Netflix shows have certainly not been properly introduced into the MCU. In this video, I am going to go on the basis that at the moment they are not in the MCU, but I believe that they should be retconned in. In this video, I am going to discuss which announced MCU projects I think he or other characters from his show should appear in, and discuss how they should handle the character and a fourth season. Before I get into that, please remember to like and subscribe and follow DM Reviews on Twitter. Link should be in the description. Also, don't forget to check out Demayer Commissions in the Discord server below for great thumbnails, profile pictures, phone backgrounds, and so much more. Within the next few weeks or so, there will probably also be a video like this for Deadpool, and if you have any ideas for other characters we could do this for, please tell us in the comments. Also, a quick warning for spoilers for Daredevil, Punisher, and the MCU, except for Loki and Black Widow, and Falcon Winter Soldier and WandaVision. Most of the recent stuff will not, anything past Far From Home will not be spoiled in this video. I want to say that this video is not a review of the Daredevil show. I will, however, say that the Daredevil series is my favorite superhero movie or TV show. In my opinion, Charlie Cox as Daredevil is the most definitive portrayal of a superhero ever. The only one that I think comes close is Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool, but I'd still take Charlie Cox over him. What I mean by this is that I would never want to see someone else play Daredevil or Deadpool. These portrayals are too definitive. This is nothing against Robert Downey Jr., Christian Bale, or any other actor who's played a superhero, but I am excited for Robert Pattinson's Batman movie, and I can one day see myself accepting someone else playing Iron Man, but not Daredevil. I could never accept anyone other than Charlie Cox as the Man Without Fear, and same goes for Vincent D'Onofrio as Wilson Fisk. I would go as far to say is that I would rather Daredevil never be on screen, or at least live action again, than have him be played by another actor. So if this little tangent hasn't made it abundantly clear, I want the entire cast returning, with no recasts. The first mention I would want of Daredevil is an Easter egg in SpiderMan No Way Home. That movie seems packed to the brim as it is, so a half-baked introduction of Daredevil would serve no purpose, and it would detract from the movie, since I would like for them in that movie to focus on their pre-existing characters, like Peter, Aunt May, Flash, Ned, MJ, and so on. I have a feeling they won't delve deep into the law aspect of everybody knowing Peter Parker is Spider-Man and people thinking he's killed Mysterio, but we could have a scene where he and Aunt May are looking through the paper to find a defense attorney, and one ad reads Nelson, Murdoch, and Page, attorneys at law. They don't even read it out loud, but it is clear as day on the screen for everybody to see. This would establish our characters inside of the MCU without taking any time away from other characters. Then, Hawkeye will premiere on Disney Plus in late November of this year, and will probably still be in the middle of airing when SpiderMan 3 premieres. In one of the episodes that airs after SpiderMan 3 premieres, I want Wilson Fisk, played by Vincent D'Onofrio, to play a large role. Considering where Clint Barton was early in Avengers Endgame and during the 5-year time jump, he likely made a lot of enemies with some bad people, maybe even Wilson Fisk. I will discuss this later when I discuss my very thorough pitch for a fourth season, but I want for Fisk to have been dusted, so he probably would have hurt someone he loves, like Vanessa. So Hawkeye would have killed Vanessa or hurt her. Maybe Vanessa took over as a crime boss for Fisk, so Hawkeye targeted her. I was thinking one episode would deal with Fisk, and they would resolve their conflict by the end of the episode, but Fisk would remain alive. And after the credits, the screen would read, Wilson Fisk will return, but we still don't know when. Then, She-Hulk will premiere on Disney Plus in 2022, and here's when we finally get to see Charlie Cox. She-Hulk is a lawyer, so it seems only natural that we would get an appearance of Matt Murdock. Also, and I think it was the Disney Plus Investor Day presentation for Marvel, but one of the presentations they were discussing She-Hulk, and Kevin Feige said that She-Hulk was a lawyer, so you never know who else could appear. And for a while, most people, including myself, have speculated that this could be Daredevil, and so that is kind of where I'm getting this idea from. In this episode, they would be opposing each other in the courtroom, and would eventually fight each other, as She-Hulk and Daredevil. They would soon realize they are both heroes, and would stop fighting and go their separate ways. Then, after this episode airs and after the credits, on the screen the words Matt Murdock will return appear. Only this time, after the words in Daredevil Season 4, coming to Disney Plus in 2023, appear on the screen. Hopefully this would not be leaked before the episode airs, so it would be shocking and exciting. Then we would not hear from any of these characters until Season 4 of Daredevil. I talked a bit about what I would want from a Season 4 in a past Daredevil video, which you can find on the channel, but I will discuss a much more thought-out idea I had for a 4th season now. Firstly, it still needs to be like R-rated. A PG-13 Daredevil TV series isn't nearly as interesting as an R-rated one. They need to maintain that same level of intensity, the darkness, and the adult themes, and they couldn't do that in a PG-13 show. I would want a 4th season to take place where we are now in the MCU, which is probably around like 2024, considering the 5-year time jump, which was an Endgame, which I believe aired in 2019. So that's probably around 7 years after Daredevil Season 3 took place. I would want for Karen, Foggy, Fisk, and Dex to have been snapped, but not Matt. The first episode would fill in the gap between the snap and where we will pick up, and it would start with the snap. It would show Matt talking to Foggy and Karen, but from his perspective, so he can't really see. Well, he could see the Daredevil way, but not the normal human way. And the normal human way you can see, but not the blind way either, because obviously he has his powers, so we would see it through his eyes. So he would be talking to them, and then he would stop hearing them, he would just hear nothing from them. So then he would start patting down the surrounding area frantically until he realizes no one is there. And then he would start hearing panic outside. So he runs outside and notices a lot of people are missing and everybody's running around frantically. We see Matt destroyed by this, but eventually he learns to accept it. So he throws himself into helping people who were hurt by this, who couldn't help themselves. And over the course of 5 years, he would lose who he is. He would only be a lawyer and Daredevil, no more of the human being Matt Murdock. The lawyer who helps the helpless by day, and Daredevil who defends the helpless by night. Matt Murdock is gone. Then, when Foggy and Karen come back, they have to bring him back. That is what the season begins with. Matt isn't a person anymore, so he has to give up being Daredevil, as Foggy and Karen suggest. But then Dex, who is now transformed into Bullseye and will be wearing a somewhat comic-accurate suit, is terrorizing Matt, doing everything he can to hurt him. That is when Matt has to become Daredevil again, and he puts back on the costume and he has to take down Dex. His friends were able to bring him back because they were there for him. This season would double down on the comparisons between Matt and Dex, and while Season 3 did a lot of it, Season 4's main theme would be about the importance of having people who can, with you who can help bring you back and help you. When Dex comes back, he sees that everyone who returns has a lot of family members and friends waiting for them, while he is alone. Matt, however, would have his friends to help him, and he would become himself again very quickly. This would anger Dex, seeing that his nemesis from last season would immediately be helped, and he's just left alone. And he'd be mad at everybody, but Matt specifically. I'm struggling to figure out where Fisk would fit into all of this, but I wouldn't want it to end up exactly like Season 2, where he's just in jail. That would be too simple, and it would be repetitive. Maybe the jail he was kept in was abandoned during the 5 years, so he is now free once he gets back because he's just in an empty field, and now he's on the run. He wouldn't play a huge role in this season because I really want Dex to be the main villain, so rather he would just occasionally come in to talk to Matt or Dex, but he wouldn't be in any fight scenes. He would probably be grieving Vanessa, and this would set him up to return as a villain later in the MCU. In my past Daredevil video, I discussed that they should have killed off Karen in Season 3. And in this season, I think they should make up for that missed opportunity. They should have Dex kill Karen at his lowest point, and then in the finale, instead of killing him or nearly killing him like he did Fisk in Season 3, Matt reaches out to Dex. He realizes that Dex is him, except he didn't have Foggy and Karen. Dex would have Foggy held hostage, and instead of trying to kill Dex, Matt would reach out to him and talk to him, and get him to stop his violent rampage. Instead of ending the show with a huge fight, it would end the show with Matt talking to Dex. There would obviously be a huge fight in the finale, because it would be disappointing in a superhero show, if it just ended with people talking. But the climax of the show, the climax, the one scene, would be talking. This would be yet another great way to show that Matt is a hero, and he doesn't kill people, and he doesn't enjoy fighting people. Even though maybe Matt does, but that's more of a flaw, and he's trying to work past that. The final scene of the season should be Karen's funeral, and after everyone leaves, Frank Castle shows up, because they've had a very interesting relationship. And then after the credits, it reads, Frank Castle will return. After Season 4, there is a very large range of possibilities of what they could do. There are many characters who I'd want him to meet. Firstly, I think he has to meet Spider-Man. They have a long history in the comics, so it seems only natural they meet in the MCU. And I think that they both have similar ideals in that I don't think either of them will really kill people much. From what I remember, I don't think we've seen Spider-Man kill anybody yet. So I think that they would both agree on that, and I think there's a lot of interesting story you could do there. And maybe you can have their relationship first start as a Peter Parker needs a lawyer type of thing, but, then they would figure out that they're both superheroes, and, well, I guess Matt would already know that Spider-Man's a superhero, but then Matt would eventually be willing to admit to Peter that he is also a superhero. Secondly, Deadpool. I think Deadpool's casual attitude towards killing people, and just his casual attitude towards, dangerous situations, and, his just overall cavalier attitude would play very well with how serious Matt is. I also would just love to see Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool and Charlie Cox as Daredevil in a scene together, so, a buddy cop type movie with these two would have a lot of potential. I would also love for him to have more scenes with the Punisher. Their interactions were, in my opinion, the best part of Season 2 of Daredevil, so getting more of them should be a top priority. A team-up movie consisting of Spider-Man, Daredevil, Deadpool, and the Punisher would be a very interesting movie to say the least, although I highly doubt we get one for many, many reasons. If you want me to do a video like this for Punisher, make sure to comment. We do have one of these for Deadpool